Hi, guys. Today we're going to be talking about, but why can't I Google it? How to make sure that your sources are reliable. Our objectives for today are that you will know vocabulary words related to information literacy. You will understand how to apply the CRAP test to determine if a source is reliable. And then you'll be able to evaluate the reliability of a source and use information to support your claim. The vocabulary words that we will need to know today are accuracy, authority, bias, credible, currency, impartial, relevance, and reliability. Let's go over those words now. The word accuracy has to do with correctness. The synonyms or words with similar meanings to accuracy are exactness, flawlessness, and then you can use accuracy in a sentence by saying something like Harley checked her news article for accuracy before submitting it to her editor. Because accuracy usually suggests that something is free from error. So she would save her editor some time. A good way to remember accuracy would be to try to think of those badges that teachers might give you if you've done something without any mistakes at all. Authority, in the sense that we're using it today, okay, the context would be somebody is a master at something. They've been doing it quite a long time, so they've built some expertise on it. Somebody who has authority usually is very qualified to talk or write about a certain topic. For example, I do not have the authority to write about fixing cars. However, if I were to interview a mechanic, that would probably give me some authority to write that article. But for me, just going by my knowledge, I would not be an authority. So, a good way to remember this would be if you are studying to be some kind of mechanic or whatever your career is, you would be eventually an expert on that field. All right, so the next word that we're going to learn about is bias. This is very important to know because when you're looking at sources, sometimes you have to be very careful to look for, is the author biased? And if that is the case, then you have to be careful about choosing that particular resource because you want a source that has no particular opinion. It should be a balance between the positive and the negative. So, bias usually has a tendency to have an opinion, which is why one of the synonyms for it is tendency, feeling, personal belief. I felt like he was biased against me before he heard what I had to say. That's an example of how you would use bias in a sentence. Okay. And everybody has their own biases, but when you're looking for a source, you're trying to get a source that has not very little bias, but somewhere in the middle ground. Okay. They should have a balance. Credible. The word credible means believable. So some synonyms that you might have for that particular word are trustworthy, dependable, reliable. Her story does not seem credible to me means her story's not believable. There's some things about her story that don't fit. Okay. So when you think of the Incredible Hulk, it's unbelievable that he can turn into that monster, right? Uh, a good way to remember credible visually would be to try to think of a check mark, meaning, yeah, I've verified this and it is very believable. Currency is, if you can see the clock, uh, a good way to remember currency would be the clock because it signifies timeliness. How long ago did this incident or occurrence happen? Something that is timely or current means it's ongoing, it's present, it's prevailing. So when you're looking for sources, you are looking for something that happened as recently as possible. Okay, the newer it is or the most recent sources are usually better than something that happened in, let's say, 1945. Okay, when I was a high school student, I did a research paper on World War II and nuclear arms. And would you believe the college library, their books were like dated 1960 something, and this was back in the 90s. So hopefully you guys don't run into that. Okay, that was before the internet. We were still using card catalogs back then. But I remember how, I was thinking about why, how can I use this source if it's so old? But that was the only thing I had at the time. Okay, hopefully you guys don't have that problem. So a good sentence for the word currency would be Henry questioned the currency of my sources during our debate. Okay, because in the way that we're using the currency today, it has to do with timeliness. The word impartial, I brought it up before as meaning, that it's fair. Impartial also means you're objective, you're not biased. So if you have two sides that you're considering, you're not taking either side, you're trying to stay in the middle. So judges try to be impartial. Everyone is innocent unless proven guilty. And so a good way to remember that would be judges. They try to be in the middle ground. They try not to take sides. Relevance is another word that you need to be familiar with as we're talking about using sources. Relevance is usually, it means a connection, a relationship. So, for example, if you're talking about maybe school, and then all of a sudden somebody started talking about, what are we going to do after school today? That may not be so relevant. Okay. You'd have to stick to the topic. It is how applicable something is. And then the last word we're going to be talking about today or using today is reliable. How accurate, how dependable, how respectable and trustworthy is a source? Are you using a reliable source of information when you're trying to present the information to support your claim in your argumentative paper? Because you're going to be writing an argumentative paper in a few weeks, and you need to be able to have reliable sources. Okay, so for our warm up, one of the things that Miss Whiting and I wanted to talk about was we wanted to ask you guys to find out as much information as you could find about, and then we're going to give you the topic. And then we said, whoever finds the most information first within the time that we give you is going to get extra credit. Okay, so honor system, because we're not doing this in person, is when can we stop wearing face masks in school? So the first student to find facts about when can we stop wearing face masks in school gets extra credit. And you may start your timer now. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole 3 minutes, but if we were teaching this in person, Miss Whiting and I would give them about 3 to 5 minutes to try to come up with the information. And then, of course, as soon as somebody said, oh, me, then we would allow the student to share what they had. Okay, and then moving on, we were going to talk about, oops, we were going to talk about, okay, share what you found and then where you found the information in our Schoology discussion. Because One of the platforms that we're using is the Schoology. We also were going to ask the student to share with the class what they found, and then tell us basically where did you find this, and most likely the answer presumably might be I googled it. Okay, so assuming that they say I googled it, we would then go to oops we would then go to why do people usually google it. Okay, and then again this would be like question and answer, and then the students would probably say, oh, I google it because it's easy, it's fast, they have their phones and then they could just google something right away. However, we would emphasize that googling it is not necessarily the best thing to do if you want something reliable. Okay, and of course the kids are not going to like that answer, but we wanted to show them this video from a commercial several years ago, many years ago, about the internet. The internet. Okay, and then of course we were going to ask the kids, uh, where do you think she obtained her information? And we're assuming the kids will say something like, well, she got it on the internet, right? But more than anything, we were gonna Google in on. We were gonna we're gonna to talk about how Google is usually probably where she got it, because that's usually where people go. Okay, and then moving on. Not everything that you find through Google is reliable, and one of the reasons is because Google usually gets paid for advertisement. Okay, so you have all these advertisers that are giving them money, and so that kind of makes me, if I were somebody doing research, that would make me question, uh, how reliable is this source? If you're getting money from it, then you might be a little bit biased, right? You might be giving me information that would benefit whoever is paying you for being able to advertise through your site. So I would take Google stuff with a little bit of a grain of salt. Okay. So the thing with the students is they're probably wondering, why is it important to have reliable sources? And we want to have the kids realize that in order for you to be credible, in order for you to establish and maintain your credibility, you need to have reliable sources. Otherwise, people won't believe you or take you seriously. Okay, so how does a student make sure that they are credible and therefore they don't lose their reputation as being a reliable source? Um, they need to think of CRAP when choosing their sources. Okay, and so with the students, we're going to talk about currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. This is a way that you can test your sources so that you can pretty much tell if a source is reliable. And we're going to watch this short video. Okay, so we're going to emphasize to you guys the CRAP test. You need to think about currency or timeliness, the relevance or relationship of the source to whatever it is you're trying to research, the authority, who wrote the article or who is in charge of creating the source. Are they somebody who's an expert, or is it somebody who doesn't seem to be like even related to whoever did the website? Sometimes you have fake websites that are trying to like use articles from another source. Accuracy. Sometimes you have inaccurate events being given or details being given. So you have to question how correct are the facts that are being presented to me when I read this source. And then purpose. Is the author trying to give you information that is impartial, or are they trying to sell you something? You have to be very careful about those things. Okay. So when you're looking at a source, think of those 5 things. You have CRAP: currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and then purpose. And so one of the things that we were going to talk about today was all of these, right? You have your currency. When was the information published? Has the information been revised or updated? Does your topic require current information? Most likely, when you're writing your argumentative paper, you need to look for something that has been more recent. Because if you try to present something that's really old, things may have changed since then. Okay. And then again, you're trying to have credibility. Okay. Relevance. Is the information related to your topic? Does it answer your question? Okay. And then think about your intended audience, like who's listening to you when you're claiming something in your argumentative paper. Is it something that is relevant to what you're trying to prove in your paper? Because if it's not, then you may not want to use that source. Is the information at an appropriate level? You're not going to want to insult your audience by presenting them information for elementary school children. If you're trying to appeal to other high school students, you may want to be at that level. And then, have you looked at a variety of sources? Authority is who the author of the source is. Do you think that they're qualified to write about the topic? And then also, okay, they don't mention it here, but is it somebody who could possibly be trying to write their opinion? So if it's somebody who's got, let's say, a vendetta against another person, or if they have a personal agenda about a certain topic, you may want to be cautious about those people. Okay, so think about the author or authority. Accuracy. Where does the information come from? Is it something that can be validated through other sources? Okay, sometimes you have the same information being repeated by different sources, and in that case, you have more reliability from that source because it's accurate. Okay, it's presenting similar, if not the same information as what the other sources are presenting. Does it seem unbiased? And then one of the biggest things when you're looking at a particular website, okay, if you have to look at a particular website, is does it have these errors? Are there spelling errors? Are there grammatical errors? Are some things are off. Okay. I was in one website one time looking through some articles, and I was like, there's something that is wrong here, because every time you tried to scroll down, things would just disappear. And so it was a really shady website. And then I kept getting all these notifications for links. And so that is not something that you want to probably trust as a good source. And then the stuff in those unreliable sources you may not want to use, because you don't know if they just stole that from another website or if they made it up. So be careful of those fake websites. And then the last thing is purpose. Is the purpose to inform? Is it to entertain? Is it just to persuade? You have to be careful about what that particular author's purpose might be. Because if they're just trying to convince you to think what they're believing or thinking, then maybe you need to check out another source. Okay. There's a difference between fact, opinion, and then there's propaganda. Are they trying to just sway you so that you'll go along with the overall point of view that they have? Okay. Some people try to make it seem like they're objective, but they're not. So be careful about those things. Okay, so Miss Whiting and I had a an activity using the CRAP guide. You have access in Schoology to two articles provided. You have to use this checklist. Okay, does the article for each one? Does the article have currency? Meaning, is it timely? Is it relevant? Do you think that the author has authority? Are they credible? Accuracy, and then for the purpose, what do you think the article's purpose is? Okay, so when you go into Schoology, you're going to see this first article and then this next one. Let's go into this one. All right, so The Onion is America's finest news source. And this particular article is entitled El Chapo's Wife Arrested on Drug Charges Exactly as Planned. And so you need to read over this, and then just using the Google sheet that we gave you, okay, there's a check mark that you have to do. Is it current? Is it relevant? Okay, all those things you need to check mark after reading this particular article. And then another article that we gave you is called Younger Adults Are Bigger Spreaders of COVID-19, Study Suggests. Okay, so you again need to read through this article and then use the CRAP checklist in order for you to determine which of these two sources do you think is more reliable, because they have to pass this test, right? In order for you to think that it's a reliable source, you have to be able to see if it's current, relevant, if it has authority, accuracy, and purpose. So we're going to give the kids about 10 minutes, and then they need to do their check marks, and then we're going to talk about these. So we'll start the timer. And in the classroom, if we had had kids in person, we would go through the whole 10 minutes, except because we don't have the 10 minutes, I'm going to stop at the 1 minute mark, and then I'm going to move on to what we're going to cover after. Okay. And then in the classroom, we'd be walking around. And then Miss Whiting and I would stop the timer after 10 minutes. And then we would ask the kids the following questions, like, is it current? Is it relevant? Does it have authority, accuracy, and purpose for each of the articles? And then we would do the check marks. Now, hopefully, when the kids are working on reading the articles, we were planning to either have them work in with partners or in groups, but also there are some kids that kind of still don't feel comfortable being like physically close to other kids, so they could work alone, but they would have the option to work with a partner, okay, and try to keep apart. But hopefully, when they went over this with us, we were going to talk about each of these. And hopefully, they kind of sense some things. For example, when we get to the next slide, we would talk about how El Chapo's Wife, that article is from The Onion. And if they looked at the article more closely, it doesn't even have a date. Okay, so it doesn't even have a date. It just says the particular day and then what time. Whereas if you go to the CNN article, it has not only the day, but also the time. And so this one has the check mark. This one does not, at least for me and Miss Whiting. The relevance would probably depend more on like what, if they were looking for a particular information. But this is the weird thing about the El Chapo's wife. Okay, if the kids can catch it, who is the group that's supposedly like, behind all this? They're saying that El Chapo's wife and El Chapo planned all this. This was all according to plan. So it doesn't seem like it's relevant at all. Okay, so this one, however, talking about younger adults, that would probably be something that they would have an argumentative paper about, because we're going to be writing one in a few weeks. And a lot of the kids are still concerned about COVID-19 and how it's affecting them. For authority, the author for El Chapo's wife, it seems like actually that article didn't have an author. And then the younger adults one had, I believe, two authors. So again, this one would have the check mark. This probably wouldn't, because we don't even know who wrote the article. And the kids don't really know about The Onion being one of parody and stuff. So for accuracy, younger adults, there have been other studies that actually back up, the thing about younger adults being spreaders of the virus. Actually, teenagers, I think, also play a part in it. So that would get the check mark, whereas the accuracy of this and actually suggesting that El Chapo and his wife had the plan to do the whole thing doesn't seem accurate at all. There are no other articles talking about how they planned this whole thing, and hopefully the kids will catch that. And then, of course, the purpose. This just goes on and on. Like, the purpose of the article isn't even to just inform, it's mostly to entertain and also probably make the reader laugh. So that would be more like a check mark for the younger adults article. Hopefully the kids catch it, okay? And then we'll go through the check marks with the kids, and then we'll ask the kids in the Schoology discussion which of the two articles passes the CRAP test, and then they have to use at least one of these vocabulary words. We have accuracy, authority, bias, credible, currency, impartial, relevant, and reliable. And we would actually allow them some time, about 2 minutes, to come up with an explanation. Okay. And so after about 2 minutes, we would have the kids share. Okay. What did they think was the better article to use as a source? Which one do you think passed the CRAP test? Of course, it should be the other one. And then they were supposed to use one of these when they gave their answer and explanation. For example, they may say something like, um, the other article about El Chapo's wife didn't seem credible because they were suggesting that El Chapo and his wife planned the whole thing, and there's no proof of that. Okay, the other articles that we found never even had anything about that. Okay, so hopefully they'll do that. And then we were going to talk about, oops, why can't you Google stuff? Okay. And so, again, to drive the point that not everything that Google gives them can pass the CRAP test, should tell them that they can't always use Google. And we're not going to talk about Google Scholar yet. We're not going to talk about how Google is working on trying to find or trying to give more reliable sources, because we're trying to sell the kids on our digital resources. So We're just going to focus on, look, Google is fine if if the only thing you have at the time is your phone. And then you can't really access our school library or whatever, our digital resources. But if you absolutely need something reliable, then you really should use something that's free, something that is verified. Okay, so we're going to drive home that we do have these resources available to them. They don't have to pay anything for those resources. um, all these resources have already passed the crap test. There should be current. They can choose the most current articles from these. They do have to be careful about the biases, though. But that was for another part of the lesson with Miss Whiting. So one of the things that we wanted to show them was how to get to the digital resources. And so there's this. Hi. Today we're going to talk about how to get to all the independent school districts' digital resources. As a student, you can just go to Aldi's website, aldinrsd.org, and then from there you're going to go to student parent, and then from there look for student resources, and then from there you need to go to digital resources, and then once you click on digital resources, you take it to this page, and from there you just have to click on text plus navigate. Tested and crap approved, so you don't need to worry about doing that checklist each and every time you use those resources. We will be talking about this next time. Thanks, guys. Okay, so the thing with this is with the TextQuest Navigator, the digital resources, some of these are editorials. So we're going to talk about that in the next lesson when we cover these, that, again, they have to be mindful of biases, but that's for next time. So we're going to move on with this one. Take this out. Hi. No. Today we're going to... Okay, so the next thing with the kids was the Kahoot game. So they just go to Kahoot it or Kahoot.it. This is the link for it if they're using the slides. We gave them a slide that didn't have all my editorial remarks. And then this is the game pin. 875. Let me go through this. Okay, and then this is a self-paced game, 098751555. 098751555. When the kids enter it, they can just answer these 10 questions by themselves. And then you just put Miss G. So Miss Whiting and I would play this game with the kids if we were able to, but the past 2 weeks we didn't have the kids in person. Okay, and I don't know why it does that, because I tried to correct that with the Kahoot, but it just keeps separating the title. Okay, the C in CRAP stands for